Good morning. Today we're here at Carriere Family Farms and we're inside the storage building that you've been watching be built on our Instagram and YouTube channels over the past few months. Behind us we have quite a bit of shell that we actually store in here to keep dry, and then we'll pull out later to process it further at a different facility.
Importantly, we're going to talk about the October shipping report, which I'm sure all of you have seen in some form or another, and it wasn't as exciting as we had hoped for, but I think it was what we anticipated. We saw a lot of continued issues with getting containers out of the California ports. We also saw that demand was down in a lot of export regions, and we had to look back and try to understand where that demand fell out. Looking at the domestic market, part of our food service industry still is slowly recovering. And what we saw domestically is that some businesses, whether they're in food industry, as a distributor or as an actual restaurateur, we're still having problems. They had sluggish sales due to lack of staffing, and I don't think that's just restaurant-wide, that's industry-wide. So, we looked at some of those numbers, and they said about 78% of people who participated in that survey said that they can't accommodate all of the people who would normally come into their restaurant just due to lack of staff.
Yeah, and then on the export side, we're also obviously seeing some major slowdowns in shipments going out. What we are expecting that to be from is the demand shifting backwards. We've talked about this before, where shipment has literally caused demand from buyers, from consumers to shift backwards because shipments have been delayed, so the product is arriving late and they're still getting through most of it. So a lot of our in-shell markets are extremely quiet, especially Turkey and India, and we're hopeful that in the next couple weeks they'll come on and start buying a little bit more aggressively and seeing some more movement there. That's obviously creating some stress in the market here as smaller packers are trying to pack in shell with no interest. So it can become a little bit challenging these next few weeks, but I think as we digress a little bit further into the marketing year, things should adjust more to a normal schedule just later. And then on the receipts side, the crop receipts in total, at this point last year, we're about 15% higher. So this year, we're obviously seeing the lower crop come in, and we're trying to gauge whether the next month's report will be a bunch more volume coming in, or if we're gonna still see pretty small volume for the total crop year.
And like you mentioned earlier, our receipts are still a little bit low, but we did have that rain, and I think that's the elephant in the room, right? We haven't discussed the rain and how it affected overall Chandler harvest, because that was a variety that was out and about in it. And so I think we're starting to identify Chandler as pre-rain Chandler and post-rain Chandler. And one of the things we're seeing in our initial testing is that post-rain Chandler won't make in shell. So we're gonna have to shell out those kernels, and we're also seeing that those kernels are having their own set of issues with regards to mold and defect.
Yeah, so again, it's gonna impact the crop a little bit as far as quality goes and volume, but overall, I think the state is pretty much wrapped up as far as receipts going in. So in the next few months, we should see a final number and have a much better idea of where the crop sits. Thank you guys for tuning in this time. As always, we appreciate the views, and if you have any questions, please reach out. Good morning.
We're still going.
Yeah. What were we doing?
We're off to the same start we usually get.
I heard the beep.
Like doggies. Like to the beep. Like now?
Do we get a treat now?
Oh, they're in my pants.
This is not as soft as I wanted.